Hey, welcome to the Vortex Garage. And well, as you can probably tell since I'm a little dirty, we've been working on this 2013 Ford Escape today. Now this is a higher mileage Escape. This has 161,000 miles. And what we figured we'd do is go ahead and grab the camera and just kind of give you a little view, mechanically at least, of what does a higher mileage 2013 Ford Escape look like? How does it hold up? And we'll do that today. We'll grab the camera and show you around. One of the things we were doing today was we replaced the high pressure mechanical fuel pump that drives the direct injection. So real quick on that, this is a 1.6 liter Ecoboost engine, and it's got direct injection, which basically is the type of fuel injection. And that means it has basically two fuel systems in a way, if you think about it. It has a standard in-tank fuel pump, and that delivers pressures about similar to what a normal port fuel injection system would be. You know, around 50 PSI or so. I think this one operates a little higher. But then you have this mechanical pump that sits on top of the engine and is driven by a lobe, and it's mechanical, and that ups the pressure to the fuel rail anywhere from 1,000 upwards of 2,000 PSI, depending on the type of direct injection or GDI system that your car has. So these operate at a much higher pressure than standard port fuel injection. So in a way, I almost kind of look at them almost like a diesel in a way. You know, diesels have a lift pump and then a high pressure, engine driven injection pump. In a way, it's kind of similar that this injection pump isn't timed like a diesel injection pump would be, and there's still spark plugs and all that. But suffice to say, on this one, the issue that we had, the car wouldn't run. It was very, very hard to start. And when we got it over here, the person that owns it, we got it towed over here, hooked the scan tool up, was able to get it. At first there were no codes, but then as soon as I got it running, it coughed up some codes. It had a P0087 for low fuel rail pressure and random misfires all over the place, and it was barely running. So what that basically meant was most likely, well, not most likely, this is what was happening. The fuel rail wasn't getting enough high pressure fuel to reliably do the direct injection. So even though the injectors were firing, there wasn't enough pressure for them to run reliably, causing the misfires. So what I did next to try to figure out what was going on, I mean, there could be two issues here, right? I mean, there could be multiple things. You've got the pump in the tank that operates at standard pressures, around what port fuel injection does, around 50, 60, 70 PSI, I think I've seen it run at on this one. And if that's failing and not getting fuel to the mechanical pump, well, you'll never get that bumped up. If it's not getting enough volume, it's not going to be able to bump it up. At the same time, these have issues with the low side fuel pressure sensor. So sometimes the sensor will fail thinking there's high pressure in the line, and it'll shut off the pump or run it at a lower duty cycle, again causing the same problem. So what I did was I went ahead and grabbed the scan tool using Forescan. Forescan Lite, by the way, go ahead and get that if you've got an Android device with one of those Elm scan tools. Awesome if you have a Ford or Mazda. And I was able to hook that up and pull all the PID information I wanted and graph it out. So I was able to see the low pressure system to make sure it was operating at a good stable PSI, that it would change and adjust as you were starting it. I was able to see the pump duty cycle, whether or not the pump was on or off in the back, which would tell me if I was having an issue with my sensor. And then I was also able to see the fuel rail pressure. What I found was that all the low side stuff looked perfect and looked really good. In fact, it was actually running higher pressure than I thought, probably compensating for the fact that the fuel rail pressure was low. What I saw on the fuel rail pressure side was bouncing between 100 and 400 PSI. And that sounds like a lot, but again, these should operate 1,000 or more. When I fixed it, put the new one on, hooked the scan tool back up, I saw it going up around 1,600 PSI, and then at idle, maybe more around, it would seem to stabilize around 700 to 800 PSI and sort of move around depending on throttle position and engine load. So what I figured from that diagnosis, being able to see that graph, was that it was probably the high pressure fuel pump. So we went ahead and ordered a replacement. It came today. We swapped that out. I didn't do a video on doing that. I kind of took a lot of this apart at night just to prep for the part being here, and then came out early and knocked it out just so I could get this done for the person. And I took a few pictures, a couple small videos. We'll throw those in here. There are some great guides on YouTube, actually. I found one that someone else did that's pretty good, and gives you the tips on what you need to do. Plus, Server's Manual walks through the steps as well. Though we didn't take a full video to show the procedure here, we can share some pictures and video clips along the way. For instance, you can see we did remove the cowling where the windshield wipers are near the firewall. That gives good access to the motor. Once there, you just pop some of the engine covers off, some of the NVH materials, a bit of the wiring harness, and then you can access the high pressure fuel pump pretty easily. All right, we're back working on this 2013 Ford Escape with a 1.6 liter Ecoboost engine. We've got the top of the motor, not the actual engine itself, but all the coverings and the NVH material taken off, so we could access our high pressure fuel pump for the direct injection. That's now been removed. You can kind of see in there. Let's show you the part really quick. So here's our old high pressure fuel pump. And then here is our new part that we're going to go ahead and install. We picked up this unit from Delphi. Here's the model number. This right here is the high pressure fuel pump tappet. So this actually sits on the spring, and then this mounts upside down like that on the engine. And this tappet, that goes into here. And if you look in there, there's a lobe on the cam, and that actually actuates that high pressure fuel pump. So as that spins, the lobe pushes up and basically pumps that high pressure fuel pump. So one of the things you do need to do, I know we're not taking video of how to do this, we've just been sort of working on it at night as we can, but that lobe in there, you do have to make sure it's at its bottom dead center of its throw so that you can install the new one more easily and not put stress on the bolts and risk stripping them out or breaking them. So to do that, we've actually got that now. I took the passenger side wheel off, and then we just came in with an 18 millimeter on the crank pulley, and we just used a ratchet. As you can see, the ratchet handle down there, and you turn that clockwise. So you have to turn it clockwise so you don't cause damage to the timing set or the engine. As we look at a few more pics here, here's a few more installation tips. First, inspect the tappet for wear and ensure that the lobe on the engine side is at its bottom dead center, per the video earlier. Also, the new pump should have a new O-ring. Be sure to lubricate that with fresh engine oil. Once you're installing the new pump, the two bolts should be tightened a half turn each until it's seated, and then torque them to 115 inch-pounds, not foot-pounds. And yes, we did torque those flare fittings. They have a very specific torque sequence, so see the note on the video for that sequence. All right, we got our high pressure fuel pump installed. Let's give this a try and see if it fires up. Awesome! Sounds perfect. Nice. Now that we got that fixed, let's go ahead and take a look at this Escape and see how it's holding up with 161,000 miles. So how about this Ecoboost engine? 161,000 miles. How's it been? How's it running? I mean, that's what everyone wants to know, is how reliable is the Ecoboost? And better not say anything and jinx it. I'm a big worrier of jinxing, and I don't have any, I mean, this is fake wood, but it's got to count for something. I'll knock on it. But suffice to say, the only things that this engine has had go on wrong on it so far are the high pressure pump, which was just done at 161,000, and it has had two turbo wastegate solenoids installed. One of them was done just not too long ago. So the first one was done, I think, at around 120,000, and then the second one went to about 160. It was a dealer part, and didn't seem to last. When you get a P0234, it's usually this wastegate solenoid. They used to be $50. Now they're $100 from the dealer. There are some aftermarket versions out there that are cheaper. Your mileage may vary with those. So aside from that, there's been no other mechanical work done on this. Now you're probably like, well, what about the timing belt? Well, this actually has what Ford calls a lifetime timing belt. And I don't really know what that means, to be honest with you. I think it should be done, and I think we'll probably plan to do one on this one. Yeah, whatever that means. And you go look online, it's actually hard to find a full component kit for them. So it looks like you can buy all the pieces and parts, but everywhere I've looked for the component kit is out of stock, and I'd prefer to get a high quality one anyway. So, but other than that, mechanically, the engine's been pretty good. So right now, thanks to the work we were doing, we've actually got the back cowling removed as well as the main engine cover. So it's a little easier to see things in here. So that's one reason we figured we'd grab the camera before we put all that back together. You can see I've labeled a couple things from when I took it apart just so I could put it back exact. Also found the battery was bad when we were working on it. Put our battery tester on it and it was testing at half capacity after it died on us and we charged it. So went ahead and replaced that. Another reason we did that is with the cowling goes to like right here, so it's actually kind of hard to get to the battery. So with the cowling removed, the battery was nice and accessible with the covers off. So it made sense to go ahead and do it now while we got things apart. And we did have to pull the wipers off to get the cowling removed. We've gone ahead and marked those for alignment so we can get them back on. Those will have to go back on when we put it back together. All right, let's go ahead and get this thing up on the lift and we'll grab the camera and just kind of inspect some things underneath, talk through some things that I know about it, and take a look at other stuff. Oh, one thing you might notice if you got a keen eye, if you notice the rim and the rim up there, they're the same. So this actually had one of the dust shields in the back rust off and it gouged a pretty nasty line in that wheel, and it was enough that I questioned the structural integrity of the wheel, so we bought a replacement wheel for it, had the tire mounted on that. So that's the old one that's up there as shop art right now. All right, let's go ahead and get it up on the lift. All right, so now that we got it up in the air, we're just going to go ahead and take our camera phone here and walk around and show you some of the things. Big question is, again, high mileage on a Ford Escape. What's it going to look like underneath? How's it holding up? Let's take a look. We'll show you up under the engine. So the biggest thing I can tell you right off the bat is there should be an engine cover here, and that is missing on this one. I think of all the places doing oil changes, it's gone missing over the years. But all in all, the engine transmission assembly look nice and dry, no leaks or anything like that. Looking pretty good. So up here on the passenger side or the right-hand side, if we kind of bring this up, we can show you, I think, if I can get this up there. Yeah. All right, there it is. There's our turbo solenoid. And, oh, that looks gross with that RTV up there, doesn't it? And, yep, you can blame me. I did that. So that is an aftermarket turbo solenoid that I'm trying out. And it's not designed as well as the Ford one. It was missing the clip piece in the plastic that actually holds it to the retainer. So I put a little RTV there. It kind of almost held, and I figured, well, let me just try a little bit of RTV there just to hold it so it's not flopping around. And honestly, I think we might replace that. I think we might put an OE one back on it. So we're not in one of the most rust-prone areas, but as you have seen and will see on our F250 project, we definitely do deal with rust here. So that's one thing I want to focus on as we're doing this. There's a lot of miles on it. How is it holding up in terms of rust? And here on the subframe, we can see just a tiny bit of surface rust and nothing at all, really. This is completely solid. All right, so here's our front end ball joint. Got a little bit of a torn boot there, but they are solid otherwise. How about the strut? Strut seems good, no noises, seems good. Brakes, just did the rotors and pads on this. They were in pretty good shape. They were just done, but CV axles look good. The boots aren't torn. Boots on that one look good as well. Brake lines, these are coated and they're nice, they're not rusted. There's our Serpentine Belt. All right, and here on our little 1.6 Ecoboost, looks like there's an oil cooler. We just did an oil change on it about 20 minutes ago, so it's got a new Motorcraft filter. And any oil wetness up here is our doing from making a mess, taking the old one off and figuring out how to get it out of here. So I think I've only done 1 or 2 oil changes on this in the past for the owner, that otherwise they've had it elsewhere. So it's a little bit of a trick to getting it out just with these pipes, getting them out of the way. Not too bad though. AC compressor looks pretty good. And the transmission, CV shafts on this side. Looks like there is a little bit of wetness, probably an output shaft seal, but just a tiny bit. It's not even really dripping down the case. But that side is a little damp. Let's look at the other side. I didn't notice it. Yeah, the other side's pretty dry. But look at the seal here. Yeah, that's actually pretty dry as well. So, and it's got like a little bearing there. This ball joint, that ball joint, the boot looks fine. This side's tight as well. The wheel bearings seem tight. Strut's still good. All right, then as we kind of move our way back, let's take a look at some of our lines as we go. Looks like the brake lines are coated, even back here. That's pretty nice. Stainless fuel lines. This is an odd. Oh, look at this. Here's an issue. Looks like we found an issue here. Here is a, whoa, this is strange. Huh. This is part of the exhaust. You can see the exhaust that goes back. Looks like there's a center hanger right here. You can see the welded piece for the hanger right here. And then that comes up to this rubber hanger here. They're not even in. So at some point in time, this piping had to have been removed. Never noticed this before. And somebody didn't put these back in. That's interesting. It's probably been like that for years. Now it looks like we might be able to remedy that by taking these off, sliding these in, and then reattaching them there. And they don't look too rusty, so I think we won't have too much of a problem. So sorry about my camera skills if I'm not doing a good job. But yeah, that's interesting. Kind of glad we're doing this now. All right. But otherwise, again, we talk about rust and just how it looks underneath with the higher mileage. Looks nice, nice and clean, no rust. Interesting, this heat shielding on this side is sort of torn away and chewed up here. Whereas on this side, it's fine. Doesn't seem to be causing any issues, but, and it's still attached. Is it touching the drive shaft? No, it's not touching the drive shaft, but it's still held up pretty good. Again, sorry for my bad camera skills. And it's only this section, the back section, still good, but that's interesting. This rail inside all looks clean and good. We come to the rear suspension, and what do we got? Oh, that looks fine. Actually, all right, that boot looks good. How are we looking on this side? A little bit of seepage on our rear diff seal. It's pretty common, especially for the age and mileage. Doesn't look too bad. That's something that'll probably need to be done at some point, though. All these suspension joints look to be holding up good. Nothing's rusted out too bad. I did notice, if you look at the shocks, they do look a little rusty, but solid, not like the ones on the F250. This arm looks like it has a little bit of surface rust on it, but it's solid. Our dust shield, I don't think this one was replaced. Unless, no, maybe it was. I can't remember. We'll have to compare it to the other side and see how it looks, because that does look kind of new. I might have done both of them at the same time. And while we were at it, I did these. These are the bolts for the wheel bearing in the back. We put new wheel bearings on it while we were back there. That was probably about a year or two ago. Let's look on this side. Yeah, that looks about the same. This is the one that rusted out, this dust shield, and it had fallen down into the wheel, but it was jammed in here and it was actually cutting into the bottom of the rim as it was driving. It was making a pretty bad noise for a little while. And it didn't take much to grind into the aluminum wheel. Stabilizer bar looking good. Springs look good. How about this side? That boot looks okay. And that side, tiny bit of seepage, but almost nothing. That looks nice. That looks pretty good. Before I go back too much further, here's the cowling that goes in the front. So if you're kind of wondering where that is or went or what it looks like, there it is. So I'm going to have to kind of step around that. So the rear muffler. Here's the weep hole. But all in all, this still looks good for the mileage, not bad. All right, here's the rear subframe. Let's take a look how that looks. We do have a little bit of rust on our heat shield holder right here. If you own a WJ, you know what it's like to replace these. Like there's a broken one right there. Does that remind you of a WJ? Any WJ owners out there? Yeah, this whole heat shield back here, all those front ones could be redone. Maybe we'll take a look at doing that at some point. Here's the other side. So this had one small issue. I can't remember if these calipers were replaced at some point with refurbed ones, but this actually didn't pass a safety inspection due to only one side of the parking brake or emergency brake holding. And what it turned out was that this arm, it's all mechanical, and this arm was actually binding and it wasn't releasing. So it was kind of just stuck halfway, and pulling the thing wouldn't do anything. So we just put some rust penetrant on it, rocked it back and forth a few times, and it works perfectly. And it seems to be working since. So it was nice we didn't have to replace anything. So little tip for you. Subframe mounts. If you've worked on a Focus, this subframe looks similar. So it's just a adaptation of that. That all looks pretty good. I mean, all in all, yeah, this caliper looks a lot newer. So that one at least has been replaced at some point. Tires look good. I actually rotated them just now. Little plastic skid on that. Let's take a look at the diff. The seal, no seepage around the seal of the differential. Drive shaft, our Zeppa joint looks dry, looks pretty good. Let's see, is it a one-piece drive shaft? No, it does have a carrier bearing, at least some sort of a carrier bearing here. So it is a two-piece, but that looks good. It's got some U-joints there, they look all right. And that goes up. Let me see if I can jam the old camera up in here and can zoom. That our Zeppa looks pretty good as well. Well, as you can see, I was able to go ahead and get that exhaust hanger off. Two 10mm bolts, they were easy to get out. And I'm kind of glad I'm doing this because I noticed just how much play there is in the exhaust pipe, and it was almost resting on the metal part of the bottom here. And right below that is pretty much this cross member. So let's go ahead and get this reinstalled. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to put some WD-40 on those. We're going to pop the hanger on, and then we're just going to hold the exhaust up, put the bolts back in. All right, that was super easy to do. I still don't know why they were out of there, but got them back in. All right, we went ahead and took two of the fasteners here and put washers under them. Thus, we were able to reattach this heat shield in the back. So if that was making noise, hopefully it won't anymore. All right, so not exactly getting a new Corvette C8 up in the air and doing a full mechanical walkthrough, but I still think it was pretty cool to get this Escape up with high mileage and sort of walk you through what it looks like underneath. And quite frankly, I gotta say I'm fairly impressed by it. You know, when I look at the mileage, the climate it's in, and I go up and look underneath it, a lot of the wear items, a lot of the hoses and the undercarriage and everything looks pretty nice. There's no major leaks, there's no major issues jumping out at me. Sure, there's a few small things here and there. There's some items that are probably going to need to be taken care of in the near future. But all in all, for its age and mileage, I think it looks pretty nice underneath. So, like I said, since we did the high pressure fuel pump on it today and we didn't necessarily do a full video walkthrough of that, figured it might not be a bad idea to grab some cameras, just at least walk you around this thing while we got it here on the lift before it's back out on the road. So, hopefully you enjoyed this. Just something quick to post up and have a video. We're going to have tons of other content here on Vortex Garage, so if you like what you see or you like our other videos, definitely subscribe and check it out as we got more. Until then, we'll see you here on Vortex Garage.